Welcome everyone. Hopefully you're all settled in. We'll get over to our main screen in a second here. Just getting some last things set up. We should be good to go. So welcome back. I apologize for not being able to stream yesterday. I had an appointment to get to that I had totally forgotten about. But we are back, and we are here with stream number 6. We're going to have some fun stuff today. I don't know how long it'll take. I'm not anticipating a very lengthy stream. Probably won't be too lengthy. We just have an affix on the table. Explaining Curios, which will be very fun, and then using our combined knowledge of everything to add in our skeletons, finally. I mean, we created those, we created those back in, well, we created the enemies in stream 5. I know we did the loot in stream 3, we did the trinkets right away in stream 2. So yeah, it's been a long time coming to get these skeletons properly implemented. Unfortunately, I have consumed all of my drink before I have even started. That's not good. That doesn't bode well. That is a bad omen. Well, welcome back, and let's get started. So the first thing we have up on the dock today is going to be the Charming Witch. So let's get our files open. Now we're going to be working on an affix that a lot of people do not like. The Charming affix, and let's get my Google Sheet open with it. Let's see, where is it? Here we go, right up at the top. So right away, we're going to come in here and we're going to go to our affix info like we have done for Royal and whatever the other one was that I forgot we implemented. It was Royal and, what was it? To be implemented. It was Royal and something. You guys will tell me. And we're gonna come down to Charming. Come down, it's already up here. Hi, Pikmin Biomaster. We are working on, let me get the stream. Where is it? It's below multiple layers of things. We are working today. It's stream number 6, as you can see by the day it's highlighted today. We're working on creating an affix from PBD, and we're going to be going over Curios and then implementing the skeletons that we created last stream. So working on Charming, and we can instantly see that there are no changes to stats. All the stats are combined in columns B through S, and there are no changes, but we do have new abilities and new AI, as we can see. And if we go over to the affix description, it charms heroes into fighting for it, which you may know very well from the Siren fight, because it uses the exact same mechanics as the Siren fight, but for a regular enemy. So this one's going to be a little bit more complex than the ones we've done in the past, namely with our Royal affix and whichever one we did before that, which I have completely forgotten. Somebody needs to help me out here. I'm just gonna look at the log. That's right, Inspirational and Royal. That's right, we did those two. So the Inspirational didn't need a new AI. Royal didn't need any new AI. We did another one before that though, didn't we? I know we did one that touched an AI. Or maybe it was just our new enemy. I think it was just our new enemy that did AI. This is going to need a new ability completely. So that's going to be a lot of fun. However, we know already how to do that. So we're going to minimize this and minimize this for the moment. we're gonna come over to our vanilla game, and let's just copy the cultist witch files for the moment. Just all of her files, just to make it easy. We can delete what we don't need, of course, because we are going to be making a charming cultist witch. And they are pretty charming. They're pretty good looking ladies. We're not going to need any of that. We are going to need to make copies. Remember, we're not overwriting the vanilla witches, we're creating affixes. So these are additional enemies to fight. And there we go. And we can delete the original 3. We don't need those at all anymore. And let's come in here and let's open up each of their... Oh, we have to rename them. You guys can sit and watch me rename them. You don't want to know how many times I've had to do this for PBD. Over 600, easily. Well, actually, I had to, for 5.0, I completely deleted all the enemies and remade them, so... I'm probably nearing 1,000 times that I've had to rename art and info files. That's fun. Oop, didn't mean to do that. Now we know from creating the other affixes, we're going to need a couple of things open. First off, we know that we have a new, we know that we have new effects. We know that we're going to need strings, so let's just get those things open so that we have them all kind of in one area to work with. So let's get our effects open. I don't anticipate we'll need any buffs. No, we shouldn't need any buffs. Well, maybe. We'll get to that though if we need it. Localization we will need, of course. And I don't think anything else off the top of my head. Well, we'll need the AI open. And finally, we're gonna open up the Siren info. And we're going to open up the vanilla AI so that we have something to look at when we're ready to work on her. So let's get our strings all the way over to the left, mods, effects all the way over to the left, and our AI all the way over. And that's just personal preference. You can put them anywhere you want, of course. So for the new enemies, let's go over here and let's copy and paste to the existing ones here. Actually, no, we decided not to do that, because it's easier just to come into the modded game and find the cultist witch. And we're just going to copy her 3, bring them over. Remember D, E, and F. We don't want to overwrite the vanilla strings. Let's get our colors in here. This is going to be Charming Cultist Acolyte. Perfect, and we'll paste this in for each of them. Oop. There we go. And put spaces there. So that should all be good. We are going to need a new ability too, and a couple other things. Okay, let's see if the Siren needs any. So we can see right here this controller. This is the single line that, well, as it says, it controls the controlling of the hero. So we see the stress per turn on the controlled hero and the effects that are given to the hero upon being uncontrolled. If we copy this and we go into the modded game's effects, we can see that it gives a debuff resistance of 20% upon being uncontrolled. So we're just going to keep that. I don't think we need to change that at all. You know, it's not going to be very different from the Siren fight mechanic-wise. So we're just going to copy this and paste it into each of our cultist witch files. And technically, they have half of pretty much what they need in their info files to get started, but we are going to need a cultist controlling ability. We need to give an ability to actually pull heroes in, and it's not just going to be with the incantation. We don't want to replace the incantation. We want to add another skill. So I'm just going to copy the cultist incantation effects simply because it has most of what we already need. We're going to call this cultist control. Very easy way for us to know exactly what it does. You can even name it something like cultist, charming control. Whatever helps you understand what to look for within the files. And we're going to give this a damage of 0%. And I do this instead of 0, simply because it's kind of an older form of things. I think 0 actually works like 0% used to. So you can do 0, but before, if you did 0, it would show 0 damage and it could still trigger death blow. We don't want this to be able to trigger death blow. So we get rid of all the damage that it can do. We don't want any effects at the moment. It's not going to do any of those. Crit valid false is great. That looks good. Attack rating. I think we're going to make that a little bit higher. I have noticed that I am doing this in the cultist F, which is okay. But I am going to make it a bit higher. We can see a jump of 10% between D and E, and then a jump of 7.5% from E to F. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to copy this for the moment, paste and paste, and I'm going to make this 110% accuracy, 120, and then 120, 7.5. So we're following the same kind of accuracy jumps that you would see within the other skills, and that's good. I mean, you can make it have a different type of jump than you normally would, but just for consistency, I want to keep it a very high accuracy. I don't want it to be missable, considering this is the affix's kind of main focus is to do this, is to control a hero. And I think it's already a nasty affix that's going to be prioritized among most other enemies, so we want to make it even deadlier. So we have this new ability, cultist control, and we have already added a new enemy attack here. So we can simply come down and we can add our cultist control ability string, and we're gonna call this I don't know. I'm gonna let you guys decide what we can name it. Something scary, something that when the first time a player of our mod sees it, they are like, oh, that's not good. So I'll let you guys give me something in the chat while we continue on. So another thing we need now that we have this is we need to put the new effect in our art files like we did with our enemy from last Friday. So I'm going to open up each one, and I like to put them next to the info files just so that they're very easily accessible. So we have info art, and so on. And I'm going to copy this. I want it to have the exact same animation, effects, and target effects that the incantation has, but simply it's going to be for the cultist control. And if you don't add this line, it will cause a crash, I believe. So it's very important that you make sure if you ever add new abilities, always add the art information. And that looks perfect. Now we need the effects, and if we come back to our enemy effect here, we have the ability and effect notes that are actually used in PBD. We have seducing control X, which means there must be multiple tiers of it, seducing stress, and seducing uncontrol. And control chance calls debuff resistance on hero, so you must write custom strings for enemy as well. And we'll be getting to that in a second, but first off, let's get these effects in place on each of the tiers. So I'm going to come over to, not the modded game, but actually PBD's files, and we're going to open up the effects. And we notice that they were called seducing blank, and I know off the top of my head there isn't anything else named seducing other than the control effects here. So we can see the seducing control for apprentice, vet, and champ, and the associated chances. Remember, as the Spreadsheet said, the control chance calls the debuff resistance. So this is going to be directly playing off of a hero's debuff resistance. So a debuff resistance of 100% would mean that the control only has a 20% chance to take effect. And debuff resistance buffs or debuffs do go into this calculation. So I'm just gonna, for the sake of calling it right now, I'm going to copy actually just these two, because we're going to be using this siren on control. And I want to put this in our effects. We're going to come down here, we're going to put, this is the charming cultist witch. And I'm going to name this charming. I originally was going to call it seducing in PBD, but it was a little weird. Charming was a little bit better, because I gave charming to like things like the pig drummers, and naming them seducing was a little weird. Maybe a little bit funny. Maybe I should have called it seducing in hindsight. So we have here these pretty massive chances at the moment. These grow at a much faster rate than in vanilla. As we can see, vanilla effects usually grow at 100% by 20 for each tier, and these are by 40 each tier. So I'm going to actually bump these down to just 20 each tier, but still keep them pretty high. And this is control for 2 rounds, which is very similar to what the siren does. It's still control for 2 rounds. And instead of causing 15 stress on charm, I'm just gonna do 10. That looks pretty good. Seducing pig +1, yeah. That would have been pretty funny. I'm not sure why I went with charming over seducing. I'm not sure what my mentality was. That was a long time ago. I was easily, I think it was the PBD 4.0 that I did that, so who knows what my mindset was. So we're gonna want to call this charming control into effect on here, and the stress. And when we copy this for each tier, we're going to want to change the charming control effect here as well, otherwise it will be the same percentage on each tier, and we do not want that. So that's pretty much good for this at the moment. Nobody gave me a cultist control, so I'm just going to try to think of something kind of creative here. Maybe something of the cult. Call of the cult. That's kind of fun, right? Call of the cult. That'll work, right? So we do need our AI, and this is going to be where things get complicated, because we haven't done very crazy things with the AI just yet. Let's close our PBD effects. Let's close our modded game effects. We don't need that at the moment. Miscellaneous strings we don't need. I'm going to keep this Siren's AI open for the moment. And let's come in here. Let's search for Siren. So before you get all, before this gets crazy, because her AI is very long, I had to do a little bit of adjustments quite a while ago in the vanilla game to make sure that she was working correctly. Basically what you need to know is that only one hero can be charmed at a time, and that's very important. Now, she has a summon skill, so anything with Siren Song is instantly going to be a summon skill. So for now, I'm just going to come in here and we're going to copy the entire Siren's AI, because that's what we're going to be working off of. And we're going to come down here and we're going to paste it. And we're going to do, what did we do for, let's just call it charming _ cultist. So we don't need anything relating to Siren Song. Or, what is it? No, the Conch Summon. Sorry. So we can just get rid of that, because she doesn't have, the cultist witch doesn't have a summon skill. So we can just focus on these skill selection desires right here. The Siren Song, the Horror, and the Disrupt. And these are pretty basic. I mean, these aren't any different than what we did with our skeleton soldiers. These are specific skill with a base chance, and then the combat skill ID. So the two things we want to be focusing on for the sirens, or for the cultist control AI, are these two specific skills that relate to the siren song. And in our mod, it's going to be this cultist control. So let's go over what this is immediately. So immediately, this base chance is 1,000 if there is a minimum of one enemy on the field, or 3. So 1 to 3, and that includes her. So if she's alone, or up to 3, massive chance. This also has a first initiative only. We won't have to deal with that, considering our witches only have 1 initiative, as you can see here. The siren has 2, if you remember. And if there aren't any controlled heroes, so 0 and 0, if there aren't any at all, this massive chance is applied to potentially do her control ability. And that's, very straightforward. Obviously, we can't, we don't want to charm more than 1 hero at once. That would get pretty brutal. And then there's other ones for like non-death's door heroes. And this makes sure that if like a hero is at death's door, she's not going to pull a hero like that. And if there are 3 to 4 heroes, or less than 3 heroes, I should say, she's not going to do it. So we can use a lot of this code for our cultist. So let's come back over to the vanilla AI and let's look for cultist witch. So for right now, I'm just going to copy pretty much everything you see here for the cultist witch A. And in our monster brains, I'm just going to paste it. And now, if we go to performing turn skill is a skill that's used on a specific turn. And of course, the first turn, the witch has a greater chance of using her incantation compared to if it was just a normal turn. We're going to want to do that, but for her cultist control ability. So instead, I'm going to put this in here, and we're going to boost this up quite heavily. She has a massive chance to do her control on her first turn. And if we wanted to, we could say 10 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1 is 14. So she has a 10 over 14 chance to do her control on turn 1, which is 71% chance. And we can even boost that further if we want, which we might. For now, we don't want to. However, we want to apply some additional parameters to this performing turn, because again, this control should only be utilized if a specific set of parameters are actually true. For one, we only want it to be done if there aren't any controlled heroes. So we have that out of the way. I mean, that's as easy as it takes to make sure that she won't do it if there's already controlled hero. And we have some other things here, like non-death's door hero. We want those. And I would say monster size, yes. We definitely want those. And instead of 1 to 3, let's do, there should be a minimum of 2 enemies on the field for her to use it. Well, no, she can use it if she's the last one on the field. I'll say that's okay. And size max, I want to do 4. It's only 3 up here because she has her summon ability. But our AI is going to be a little bit easier than that. So now we have all of our parameters in place for the charming witch and her AI. But we wanted to, that's only performing turn skill. The thing is, if she's alive past round 1, which is very likely, she actually doesn't have any parameters to do her control again, and we want to do that. So I'm just going to simply come up here, and we're going to copy this specific skill, name it cultist control, and we're going to copy all of our parameters except for performing turn, and we're going to paste them here. And this makes sure that the exact same parameters apply to her control, regardless of whether or not it's her first turn. And we're going to come up here and delete these. We don't need them anymore. We use them simply as examples and to pull their parameters. So let's mess with the chances now. Of course, on her first turn, she's now going to have, remember this now applies in addition. So we have 16. So we now have 12 over 16% chance to do a that initial control. But I want it to be just a bit higher than that. And I'm going to bump it up to 20. And I did say a bit, but it's only because you get diminishing returns as you create outliers for chances like this. So even though I bumped it up to double of what it was, it's now simply going to be 22 over 26, which is still only 84. So we only bumped it up by 9% because of doubling that. I still think that's a good amount. It still has a very high chance of actually being performed. And if we want to adjust it post implementation, we absolutely can. So we now have all these target selection desires as well. I don't think we need that. Yeah. We can see here for the Cultist Witch Apprentice version, we have completely random targets. And then you get higher stress targets as it goes up. So I'm probably just going to copy those in. Except for one. I think it's a good idea if we do try to take enemies with higher, or I should say lower debuff resistance. Much like the Siren does. So we have a random target here. And that's perfect, so that'll just apply for every skill. And now we have this resistance target selection desire for our cultist control ability. And you can see here that this is pretty simple stuff. We have this can target death's door hero, no. Can target the last hero, no. Is enemy target desire, yes. These are pretty simple, but when it comes to resistance target, the main thing you want to be looking for is these last two lines, which is resistance type ID and the is greater comparison. And what this means is that if the target has a greater debuff resistance than everybody else, you have a slightly lower chance to target that hero. And down here we have that, but with false. So if the hero has lower debuff resistance than everybody else, give it a slightly higher chance to target. And that's very important. But we have a little bit of a leak here. We have a problem with our target selection desires, and that's that this random target applies to every single ability. We don't want it to. We want it to apply to every ability except our cultist control, which is going to have very specific target selection desires given to it. So I'm simply going to come up here and copy the random target for the 3 of her other abilities. Cultist push, cultist pull, and her incantation. And this way, the only target selection desires that apply to her control at the moment are these two sections. But I wouldn't be against having a random target, because if we make her AI too predictable, then it can get a little bit bad. But too predictable of AI is actually very bad AI. So we want to have some randomization in there to make the AI intelligent. Which kind of goes against common thought, is that, smarter AI is better AI, but dumber AI in this case is actually going to be smarter AI. So I want these same kind of things to apply. We don't want to do Death's Door hero or last hero. I also want to make sure that she can't target, maybe not virtue targets. Let's come in here and let's find the Siren AI again. Let's check out some of her target selection desires. And that's going to be her song. So we have the death's door and last hero both are false, which is good that we have that on our random target. It doesn't look like she has any virtue target desires, which I thought she did have. Weird. I might have just done that in PvD, which I don't think it's necessary here. Let's give this, I think that's pretty good, but we have a little bit of a problem when it comes to the other difficulties of the cultist, because right now this works for her apprentice version. So we're simply going to call that Charming Cultist A, and we're going to come down here and copy and paste it for Vet and Champ. And let's find, this will be Vet, and this will be Champ. We'll come back over to our vanilla AI and let's find the cultist switch again. Perfect. So we have these cooldowns now on for push and pull at the Vet and Champ levels. So we're going to come here and we're going to copy that. And for our Vet and Champ, we're simply going to paste it within these brackets. And that way we're kind of we're updating our Charming AI for each of the tiers difficulties. It's the cultist incantation that has the virtue heroes limit. And that appears to only be at the Vet and Champ levels because it applies the mark. In addition, so let's come up here and let's copy simply this. And I think it's going to be the same for, yeah, it's going to be the same for Champion. Let's apply this to the incantation skill. Very good. And if anything else we missed, there's a slightly higher chance to do incantation than push and pull at higher levels. Although stress output is still going to be high. That's the only reason that it is that that high in, or that there's a slightly higher chance in vanilla, is because the cult switch is a stressing enemy. So if you give her too much weight on her non-stressing abilities, then you're taking away kind of her whole use. And we have these stress target chances as well. And I want to copy those over. So let's come down here and let's come to our, here's our Vet Cult Switch. Let's paste this on the end. That looks good. And then let's do down here, this had a slightly higher chance. And I think that looks about good. I don't think we're missing anything, although AI can be very easy just to make one mistake or have to do some additional tweaking. So if we need to, we will. But for now, we can come in here and we can paste our new AI codes and make sure to name them appropriately. And I think that's about good. I think we have everything that we need in place for these to work. Let's make sure to come over to our strings and let's copy in. I'm going to copy all of the enemies and enemy attacks. And I'm going to paste it over the existing ones for each of the languages. And we're going to need one more thing in relation to the strings, something that it might be easy to forget. If you've ever done the Siren Fight, which I would hope most of you have, there are strings that are said by the heroes when they are under control and when they are taken off of control. And we're gonna have to find those. There we go. So let's come over to the modded game, which is right here. Let's open up localization and come to the Dialog Localization. And it should be right here actually. So we can see right here these control before turn and control return strings. These are simply the strings that are given to the heroes. To say they're randomly chosen out of each subset and spoken by the heroes. So I'm going to come here and copy these. And let's make a new section in our strings. Let's name these Charming Witch Dialogue. And we'll paste them. And make a new section. Alright, so these are mostly given to things that have, like, in relation to the siren, like, for the tides, do not threaten my queen, I will live forever here with my love. These are all very specific to the siren, and I don't think we really want those. Grand Peepus, do you know what's up with class mods ignoring the prevent nighttime ambush thing? I do not know what you're talking about. However, stream number 8 is going to be a Q&A stream, and if you want to save it for then, I might be able to take a look into it. Although I don't know specifically what you're referring to, so if you wait until after the stream in our Discord, I can help you with your specific problem. So for right now, I'm going to delete all except for one, and then I'm going to delete what's in them, just so we have blank slates. And instead of the siren, we're going to want to name this Cultist Witch. After the enemy ID, of course. Cultist Witch is the base ID of the enemy. I'm going to come over here, we're going to use some of PBD's existing strings. Most of them should work. Let's see here. Fallen. Here they are. Right here. Writing strings is like a box of chocolates. Eventually you just need to stop and assess your health. But damn, I love it. I do love it. Here we go. So we have before turn siren, and here are our Cultist Witch. Now some of these are going to be PBD related, so we're not going to want to have all of these, but we can copy some of these because they are not PBD related. Simply to make our life a bit easier. So what ones are PBD related? These two are for sure. Temptation is overtaking my mind. You're right, they are my enemies. To hell with these scum. You vile wretched witch. Get her, my friends. These all look good. So I'm actually just going to delete our existing ones, and we'll just take these. These are all very well written at the moment, and they look good. So let's come up here and let's yeah, I'm just gonna copy up to here, and then we're gonna paste them in for each of our languages. Just some more tedious work. It's okay though. This is good because it means anybody playing our mod at least won't have broken strings if they're playing in another language. And I'm kind of glad that this Cultist Witch is taking a while to implement, because I was a little worried that today's stream would be short. It still might be, but I don't think so. I feel better about the time. All right. So we have dialogue in place. We have our attack names in place, our affix names. We have the effects in place. Our AI is in place. We have the new abilities, AI, and the control code. I would say everything looks good. We can actually come in here and start testing and see if it works. So let's close this and open our modded game. Now let's copy every folder that has changes in it. Let's paste it. And we're going to want to run the localization batch again. And our AI should, or our dialogue should now be compiled. And we're going to come in here and let's create our new monster. And this time it's going to be the Cultist Witch D. And let's give her just some skeleton rabble. Okay, we don't want to do 4 enemies again because remember that we told her AI that it can only, she can only do her control ability if there is, oh no, we didn't because we made a mistake. We do want this to be 3, not 4. I'm glad I checked. So she can only do this if there are going to be 3 or less enemies, including her, on the field. And remember, this checks for monster size, not monsters. If it was just monsters min, it would check for the number of monsters, but the monster size checks for the total size out of 4 that all the enemies are taking up on screen. In this way, this prevents like size 2, size 3 enemies from making that code error out and potentially causing a crash. Let's get our new AI over now that we fixed that. And this should be good. We should be able to run this. We don't want... Oh, it just closed. We want this one. Let me make sure it's... Name of an object member must be a string. Looks like we made a error in our mod strings. Or in our AI. Let's come and find it. So it's saying that something must be a string, so it looks like we made a mistake in one of our combat skill IDs, potentially just forgetting a quotation mark. Which is very common. The AI can break very easily simply by one mistake. But it's looking for a string. So I'm going to do a little bit of debugging here. Let's see if we can find it. And let's... I didn't mean to open this up. Let's close that. It's going to have a problem anyway. So I'm going to open up the RAID AI here. And I'm going to delete B and C. So that way we can focus on if the problem is isolated to a single enemy's AI. Let's put in the correct ones here. Let's do cultist, witch, A, or D. So it should error out again, which is good. That's all fine. And let's just slowly delete things until we find the issue. Let's delete all except for this. Let's run it, see if it errors out. Or at least has the error that we're looking for to fix. So it is still erroring out. Name of an object member must be a string. That is okay. I wonder where it is. It's like a scavenger hunt. We just gotta find it. Let's delete those. Still having a problem. Where could it be? Let's go with that. One time in PBD, I implemented about... we fixed it. We found the code that we deleted was the problem. Like I was saying though, one time I implemented probably about, I would say 50 new AI in PBD. And I forgot one comma. Just one. And I couldn't for the life of me find it. That was nasty. Spent about 3 hours finding that. So we got rid of these 3, so there must be something here that's causing the problem. Or it was simply that the specific combat skill IDs were causing the problem. It is important. I have found the problem. As you can see here, we included an extra comma where it shouldn't have existed. and it was causing the whole file to be unreadable. It's almost as if it was fate. So let's come into our mod AI, not the one in the game, and let's fix the errors here. Fixed, and fixed. Hopefully, we'll be good. So let's paste it over, and let's try to load up our witch again with 2 skeleton rabble. And no more AI errors are being given, which is very good. I want to come in here, I want to mute the game because it's going to be loud for me. I do have it muted for you guys. Oh no, it is already muted. Be good. Otherwise it starts up at full thing. So I assume she's going to act first. She has very high speed, but I want to come in here and make sure that debug is showing. We're still having that error. I think I know why that is though. I have to contact Red Hook about that. So we can see our cultist charming acolyte, or charming cultist acolyte, is in game. We have the correct name for her, so we're just gonna pass a turn until she charms a hero. Call of the Cult. Animation is working, effects is working. Perfect. And we can see that it applied the stress, it pulled the hero correctly, and we're gonna pass again until he acts, and we're gonna see if he spouts out one of the new lines that we gave. We're gonna have to pass a round to see that. And she shouldn't try to charm anyone again because there are 4, each size of the enemy team, you know, is maximum of 4 is being taken up. She can't do it if there are too many. To hell with these scum, and he took his stress per turn, and he is using Beast Bile on our center 2 ranks. So that's working perfectly. And we're going to pass another turn again so that he does his second attack and then comes back to us to make sure that he gives his return line. Good dodge. Alright, so let's see if he comes back. Perfect, you vile wretched witch. So he was controlled only for 2 rounds there. That at first round though, he had already taken his action. So that's okay that he did that. But she's working. And we can even, let's see if we can try to kill one of these enemies before she pulls another person. Hopefully we can get lucky. We gotta get our Houndmaster to act though. Flag Doctor. I don't think we're gonna get it. She's gonna pull someone before it. I don't know, she did an Eldritch pull. We'll come in here, we'll do a... I was hoping that would do 2 damage. That's okay. But I think I can already see a problem with her AI is that she controlled an enemy, which she has a very high chance to do, of course. But the chance to do it again, well, she did it there. But I don't think it's as high as I'd like it. But it is working without issues, so we do have this actually all implemented. I am going to open up AI and just check, double check I should say, her chances to control apart from her turn 1. So yeah, we can see it's pretty low. I'm going to bump this up probably to 9. We're going to do that for each tier. And this is after her turn 1, because this is performing turn 1, and this is simply after she's already done that. Because she does have a very small chance not to do the control her first turn. It's small, but it's there. And I think that looks good. So let's come up to our mod and let's commit this change. Make sure to select all, and let's do Charming Cultist Witch Affix implementation. And that looks perfect. And our revision is fully updated, and we have that affix taken care of. So are there any questions before we move on to Curios? Because I know that was a ton of AI work. And that's pretty complex AI compared to just simply adding in a new regular attack or two, you know. So feel free to ask away as I get things set up for our Curio. Alright, if there aren't any questions, which I know there's a slight delay, hopefully you were able to understand all that. We're going to work on our Curios now. Before we even get into what we want to do with our Curios, which is the last thing on our stream, we kind of need to understand how the Curio file is set up. If you're unfamiliar with spreadsheets, you can export spreadsheets in a file called comma separated values, or .csv, as we can see our Curio type library is in. And this means that if you have a kind of a very beautifully made spreadsheet and you just want to simply export that into a type of file that a game can easily read, you can do so. And if you open up this Curio type library, you can see that it's pretty easy to understand the separations of Curios here. You can see that simply by the number of single comma lines. It can be kind of complex to figure out what exactly all this nonsense means. And it makes a little bit more sense if you import it into a spreadsheet, which doesn't help much. But it should give you a good idea that these things do have very specific uses and very specific reasons for existing. Even the item interactions, you can see them below here in each kind of column. So if we treat that as such and we come in here and we take a look at like the lock strongbox, for instance, let's just take it line by line. We don't need to go more complex than line by line at the moment. So we can see here that this has an ID of 2. The string name is lock strongbox. I assume that doesn't appear in game because we know that all strings are actually they're all contained in another file. All our strings are contained in other files, so it doesn't call this. This is simply for kind of our own help. And then we have this mixed here, which I also don't think is used by the game at all. So this is kind of like a header. This is kind of like a header file or a header line. This doesn't get read by the game at all. Neither does this. Anything in caps usually doesn't get read by the engine when it comes to this Curio file. It's simply used in the spreadsheet to determine kind of these rows here, or the string, or the region found. So anything you see kind of with in full caps is not really read by the game. Now let's simply mark those in our lock strongbox here. So we can simply kind of ignore those. But if we see here this ID string, and right below it you'll see this locked strongbox. This is the ID that is looked for in the string file, which hopefully I can find that. They did not get rid of the Curio string, which is perfect. So let's look for lock strongbox. I'm gonna simply search for this and bookmark all of the lines. So we can see all the lock strongbox strings are right here. Yeah, the cap lines are kind of, they were made in the original CSV. I don't have the original spreadsheet with me, but you can simply import the CSV into a spreadsheet and make it look a little bit better if you want. You can even export it and use that if you'd like as well. But this is simply just to show that there are these kind of very specific ways of dealing with things. So full Curio, yes, tags, and you have these tags here, the item interactions, and then they're all here. And we simply want to use that knowledge to handle it. Welcome people from, I assume, the Battlefield Easter egg server. I see a little raid going on. So we can see that the lock strongbox is the string that it looks for, and in the Curio string file, we have all of our strings that are associated with the lock strongbox. So as you would assume, if you open it and find nothing, it'll say the lockbox is empty. If you open it and it has an effect, it'll say it's trapped. As we know, the lock strongbox, the only effects that can do are traps like bleed and blight. And then you have different item interactions. So getting loot with a skeleton key, opening it with a shovel and finding nothing, and opening it with a shovel and finding loot. But how do we actually determine what our Curio has? How do we determine what it actually does if we touch it or if we use an item on it? And that's going to be in these lines here. So let's come back to our spreadsheet. I do apologize. This can be kind of daunting to figure out. I had to figure it out all on my own, and it took me a while to fully realize how exactly this all worked. So we can see these result types here, and it's much easier to see this in the spreadsheets than it is in here, because the comma separated values do show us kind of where things take place, but it's very scrunched up. It's not very noticeable. But here we can see the result types. So we can see nothing, loot, quirk, effect, purge, which is used for purging quirks, scouting, teleport, which I believe is completely unused at the moment. I don't even think functionality exists, and I say that by me testing to see if it is possible. And disease is also completely separated from quirks within the Curios. So we can see here with the lock strongbox, it has this loot 1 and effect 1. And these weights are perfect. We've dealt with weights in everything else we've done. In our loot files, in our what am I thinking about? Loot and AI, everything is based off of these weights. So it's the chance, take this divided by the total weights, which, as you can see here, is 50% chance. Now this is 100% important to make sure if you're working on Curios, that the game takes into account the weight, not the percentage. The percentage is simply there as a helpful reminder. So do not change the percentages, because that will not actually change the chances in game. It's only based on the weight. I assume that this percentage chance column is just calculated in the original spreadsheet. So these weights are what matters here. We can see for the heirloom chest that it has a weight of 3 for loot and a weight of 1 for effect, which you can see translates into 75% chance and 25% chance. So we'll come back up here. We can see in this section here, this result weights. We have the result 1, the result 1 weight, and the result 1 percentage. And we can see this goes for result 1, result 2, and result 3. So we can have a maximum of 3 results of any specific sub-result. Which I apologize if that sounded a little confusing, but what it means is that for an effect, if we have an effect possible by a Curio, we simply are only able to put 3 effects in place. Blight 1, Bleed 1, and if we wanted to add a 3rd effect, we could, and weight it accordingly based on our design. But we cannot have 4 separate effects. Simply not possible. So there are very, very specific limitations to the Curio system, and one of them is that you can only have a specific amount of actual possibilities to draw from. Now for loot, we can see that the results are a little bit different, because we don't have this kind of percentage when it comes to loot. We simply have these results are all added. So you won't get a result 1. There's no weight, there's no percentage. It's simply when you pull from loot, you will get 2 pulls from the A table. And whatever is an addition. And we can see that here. For the this is an unused Strongbox, but we can see here that it pulls 3 times from the B table and 1 time from the T table, which is trinkets. These are not weighted, these are not percentage, these are not or, these are and, if you know your logic. So it's going to pull both of these. And that applies for all loot tables. However, if we come to our loot table in our mod, let me minimize this. There's a little workaround to that. Because loot tables are or, meaning you can't choose between a loot table one or the other, you can simply give them a loot table that then itself pulls from a specific set of tables. So you can kind of use the loot system in the Curios to your advantage by calling a table, like A twice, which we know has a multitude of other tables in it, and that itself will do a call for other tables. So you have a little bit more freedom when it comes to loot, but you don't have very much freedom when it comes to effects, because you can only choose from 3 possible effects, and you can't have more than that. You can't do effect tables, so to speak. So it's okay that there isn't much in the way of freedom there, but you do have some of it when it comes to loot. And we're not going to be going over quirks or purges at the moment. What I suggest you do is, with everything else, if you don't know how to do something, simply look up how it's already being done. And what I mean by that is that we know there are certain curios that do purge quirks. Name off the top of my head, like the scrolls, pile of scrolls do purge quirks. You can simply come here, right here, and you can see how it's set up with the item interaction here, and just copy it. Just copy it. That's all I can do, because that's all I can recommend doing, is because that's about as easy as you have to get with it. If you don't know how something is done, see how it's being done already, and copy and modify it, and hopefully it'll work, right? But I also recommend loading it into a spreadsheet just to kind of visualize how it's set up, and then you can come into the file itself and make edits until you understand it. And item interactions work very similarly. We have the item, and this calls the ID, which we've worked with before, the result type, which in this case is loot for both skeleton key and shovel, and it's simply going to call from the nothing table once and the A table twice. And it looks like they originally wanted to have like a system where it would call either the nothing table or the A table, but as you remember how I just told you, loot tables are additive in this form, so it's not this or this, it's this and this. And that goes for pretty much everything. We can see, holy water being purging for the Eldritch Altar, holy water applying an effect, and it's all based off of these weights, not the chances. Any questions on that? Anything you want me to repeat? Or anything you want me to show you? There's a couple things I could go over, but please, if you have any questions right now, voice them, and I can address them. There's some things on the left here, and some things on the right that we didn't go over, like strings and stuff over here. I'm gonna go over those right now. So we have this one yes or no full curio kind of thing, and that doesn't really make sense of what it is. Like full curio, no, okay, what does that mean? That simply means whether or not the curio will display a prompt to interact with an item. And that's the only thing you need to change to make that work. as yes or no. As we came down here to the discarded pack and the sconce, these don't have item interactions, so they are set to no. But you could set them to yes, and it would prompt for an item interaction, but of course there wouldn't be any, so you might confuse players into thinking that there is an item interaction when there isn't one. And then you have these tags right here, which I think I accidentally deleted. Yeah. So these tags are applicable only when it is concerned with quirks, as in quirks that interact with specific curios. Let's take a look at that. Where is our modded game? Let's come into our quirks, and as you know, the absolutely annoying one of kleptomania, or let's do compulsive. So we can see here that the compulsive quirk does indeed have a curio tag chance, with the curios tagged with all. And it now makes sense what that means, considering if we come back to our spreadsheet, we can see that every single curio is tagged with this all tag. You know, here, the Altar of Light apparently is not, which is very interesting to know. But most of them should be tagged with all. And that's what these tags mean. And, you know, it can be very easy if you've never worked with, like, the quirks before to wonder, like, why do these tags exist? But we can see now that these tags are applicable to the quirks. So if you ever want to make a new curio, make sure that you give it the proper tags that you want certain quirks to interact with it. So that's a really cool part of it. And then over here on the right, we have these notes and strings. The only thing I want to say about the strings is that these are not the ones that are used. You do not have to ever fill out the strings unless you want to. But these strings are never used. They are, I think they once might have been pulled from it, but now they're pulled from this instead. So you can simply ignore that and fill them in based on these. So now, are there any questions? I think I've gone over pretty much everything I want to concerning curios. There's so much more to them, but I highly recommend just looking at existing curios and kind of figuring out how they did them, and copying and pasting where necessary. So any questions on that before we go on to adding our interactions to existing curios? I just realized my mic is probably picking up my breathing, which is not wanted at all. I don't like that. That's probably better. Stupid noise gate. There aren't any questions. Let's get on to finally implementing our summonable enemies. So if you remember from stream, whatever numbers, my memory's terrible. I don't remember what streams we worked on them. I know we did them on 5. We kind of got them all ready to be implemented, but we didn't actually implement them just yet. Let's close this, and this, and also that, and this. We've gone over that. We do need our curio files, so let's come over here and let's copy the curios. Actually, no, because I know that the DLC adds them, so we want to see how the curios are handled in here. We can see cc_curio props.csv. So I'm simply going to, I wonder if they override though. We might not be able to override the existing ones, which is unfortunate. We might have to actually include the entire curio file. I don't think we can override, which is a shame, but that's okay. We know that some things are already not going to be compatible with other mods. It's Curio. It's not Curios. It is Curios. Mistake made. There we go. And let's go in here and let's copy the type library, not the props. And we want to add our skeletons as summonable enemies. Now, the only current summonable enemy by a Curio in the vanilla game is the Shambler. So I'm going to come over here and we're going to clone this to the other view. This is the exact same file, so if I make changes to one, it will make it on the other. And we're going to find the Shambler. Alright, so we have the Shambler's altar here, and I'm just going to put a little bookmark on there so we know where it is. And we're going to want to find the Curios that we actually want to modify. Now, I want these to be summonable from Curios that might contain a skeleton. So something like an Iron Maiden or a sarcophagus. So let's come over to the modded game. And let's look for the props that occur within the vanilla game in the ruins, because that's the type of area that our map is going to be created with. So I'm looking here. I don't think there's the Iron Maiden I want. There is the locked sarcophagus. And I don't think anything else. So we're just going to work on these two, the locked sarcophagus and the Iron Maiden. So let's find the Iron Maiden. Alright, so right here we have the Iron Maiden, and we want to add a item interaction that is going to summon our skeletons. Alright, well, let's come over to this Shambler's altar and let's see how it's handled. So we can see here that the item interaction, if you use a torch, it does a summon, and it calls the summon mass Shambler encounter with a weight of 1 and a chance of 100%, which we again know is not actually what the game uses. It uses the weight, not the chance. So I'm actually just going to copy this and paste it below the medicinal herbs. But what do we actually want this to be used with? Well, maybe we can be a little bit sneaky. Maybe we can say that instead of giving loot with the medicinal herbs, we'll make it summon our new skeleton, which we know drops our new trinket set. So I'm simply going to copy the medicinal herbs, paste it, and then we're going to delete the loot line from medicinal herbs. And instead of summon mash Shambler, let's call it summon mash skeleton. And this doesn't exist yet. We need to create this, but for now we can simply have this as a placeholder. And we're going to copy this then and find the locked sarcophagus, which, let me see if I can find it. Locked display cabinet, locked sarcophagus. Here we go. And we want this to happen not on a shovel, but perhaps, or not on a medicinal herbs, but perhaps on a shovel. Like, you know, you break into the locked sarcophagus kind of roughly with a shovel and it disturbs the skeleton and enlivens it. You know, we can have a little bit of imagination there. So instead of the shovel giving loot, we're going to have the shovel give our summon. And we can modify the strings accordingly. We don't have to worry about the strings just yet. Let's instead worry about creating the strings. Let's open up our string table, and let's open up the vanilla string table as well, because we do not know how to actually set these up. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to look for the Shambler's altar. Perfect, it's right here. And let's look for the summons. We can see that Curio Shambler's altar, when used with a torch, will do a summon, and the ID for that summon is summon mash Shambler, which is a very long entry ID, but it is the one we want. Let's come down to our thing here. Let's do Curio, Curio strings, and let's put another section down here as a spacer. And let's paste this in. Now it's not going to be the Shambler's Altar. It's going to be the Iron Maiden, first off. And it's not going to be a torch, it's going to be medicinal herbs. And it's going to be a summon, but instead of summon mash Shambler, it's going to be summon mash skeleton. And let's say that the herbs enliven the skeleton inside. Perfect. We do, however, also have that the herbs are giving loot here in our Iron Maiden, if I can find it. Now, I'm pretty sure that we can override it simply by including it within our string file. I think it pulls from our modded ones first, or actually it's not going to because we're manually testing. Which means for just this case, we are actually going to want to copy over the Curio string file. However, when we eventually upload our mod to the Steam Workshop and build it using the Steam Workshop tools, we won't need this. And I'm going to make a note of that. I'm going to come in here, and I'm just going to do to-do text. We're going to put delete the Curio string file. We won't need it. And make sure we're overwriting the vanilla medicinal herbs loop. That should be good, and I just have to make sure that I remember that that is actually there, which I probably won't, but I will eventually figure it out. So we want to overwrite this, no we don't. I'm being stupid. Somebody chat told me I'm being stupid. We don't need to, because there's going to be no loot interaction anymore. It doesn't exist. So we simply just don't need to include the string. I'm being stupid. Which is not uncommon when I'm modding. Sometimes things just go right over my head. So there's no loot interaction, so we don't actually have to worry about that. There's no way for medicinal herbs to actually give our Iron Maiden a loot interaction, as we can verify, simply for the sake of posterity. Never gonna happen. We only have our summon. So we don't need to overwrite anything there, and we don't have to do it for our locked sarcophagus either. So let's come over to our strings and let's copy this. Let's do locked sarcophagus, shovel, summon mash skeleton. Instead of the herbs, we need to do the noisy approach as, let's just do annoyed the skeleton that was sleeping. Perfect. Simple, perfect, and easy, and those should be both perfect for what we want to accomplish. And let's copy these strings. And while I'm doing that, are there any questions? We're amassing quite the large number of strings here, which is good. That means that our mod is slowly growing into something much larger. And I think that will become very apparent when we start to create our map on the last 2 days. Very cool. So we've got all that taken care of. We don't need this. We don't need this at the moment, but I'm going to keep it open just in case we need to make a change. And in our scripts files, we have our additional mash files. We're actually going to want to add on to these with new ones, with ones that are named. Let me pull this over just so I can quickly open them. And we're going to enter and come over to the modded game and simply open up one of the existing files right here. So we can see here that this is not going to be hall or room. We want to look for these named ones. We can even see right here that our named shambler actually exists right here. So we can simply copy this, close it, and we'll paste this in here for now. Now we know that the name of our mash that we want to call is the skeleton, summon mash skeleton. Sarcophagus or sarcophagus, I think you made a typo. I think we did. It's very possible. Let me check. I wouldn't put it past me. Let's see. Sarcophagus. Should be correct. It's with an O. You've made me wonder now. Oh no, it is sarcophagus. Can it be spelled with an O? Now I need to know. I do feel bad about that though. Unless the locked one is named differently, which it's not. No, I think that's just an error on my part. Easy though, we can come in here, we can find and replace it. And we can replace all taken care of. So we have our summon mash skeleton. We don't want it to summon a shambler, of course. That would be very, very naughty. We want it to summon our new skeleton, which they're the skeleton militia, and I believe they are G, H, and I. Yep, we can see our new skeleton trinket set there. So let's call skeleton militia G. That's for apprentice. Skeleton militia H. Did I didn't change the wrong one. It's militia I. Did I change it in here? I'm not looking. I'm not paying attention. I was so focused on mashes that I think I made another mistake. I did. Oh boy. Forgive me. Oh boy. Don't do that, people. Alright, all fixed. Promise it's all fixed. Welcome to modding. I have like a billion things. In Loc? What about my Loc? I changed it. It's all good. We're all fixed now. Are we all fixed? Yeah, we're all good. It's like if I were just worrying about Loc, that's one thing, but I'm thinking about like all the things to make this work. Because normally if I were implementing like a summonable enemy, I'd do it all in one go. I wouldn't do it over multiple sections like we've been doing. And the reason I have to do that is for learning. You know, I can't just jump into making a summonable enemy, of course, with its own loot tables and trinket sets. You know, I want to do it solely so that people learn different systems at different times. So this is very different for me, but this is very, very nice. So we have our additional apprentice, vet, and champ subtypes here for our summon mash skeleton. We have our strings in place, and now we should be able to come in here and let's copy our Curios, Dungeons, and Localization folder over. Replace, let's run our localization, and I'm going to need to do one thing at the moment. I'm going to need to go over to our be right back just to hide some things. I won't play the music though, we'll pause that. Sorry. Normally I would do this. Fortunately, there are some things I can't share at the moment with you guys. Yeah, it is a little bit of dev magic. We should be all good now. We can come back. we want to guarantee a shovel and herbs. So we're not going to do this to our mod files, we're going to do this to our testing files. We're going to come in here to provision, and we're going to guarantee a shovel and medicinal herbs for when we test. So this should load up with an Iron Maiden right away, and we should have a medicinal herbs to test this with. So let's see if I didn't make any mistakes. Perfect, we have an Iron Maiden right here, and we have our herbs tested on, so we can test this. So let's go here and let's drag our herbs up, and I'm going to slow down the game just a little bit so that we can see if the herbs enliven the skeleton inside. Let's speed it back up, and it stopped working because of some unknown error. Who knows why? Why does that exist? Let's see, I know why that wouldn't exist. Can we not put these in here? Our enemy should exist. Let's make sure that our enemy exists. We didn't make a mistake. Let's find our Iron Maiden. Make sure we didn't misspell something. Medicinal herbs are summon mash skeleton, chance skeleton militia G. That should be the correct name for it. Skeleton militia G. Let's do a little testing. Let's see why this does not work. It is in the crypts. That is the default when you do that, so that shouldn't need any specific changes. I have a funny feeling that you might not be able to put them in the additional mashes, which would be very unfortunate if you could not do that. So let's come into our Crypts T1 mash, and let's paste this, just to see if my theory is correct or incorrect. I don't think I've missed anything, but it's very possible that I have, that there's something stupid that I missed. We have strings right. Let's see if this works. This works. So we have our soldier, and it's surprised, and it has everything that we want it to have. If we instantly kill it here, we can see that it is dropping the bone trinkets. So it's very possible that our mod, we cannot include named mashes in our additional mash files, which I will have to contact Red Hook about, because I don't think that's intended. Let's try it one more time, just to make... That's not the one I wanted to try, but it's okay. I can just close that. In which case, for the sake of our mod, we're actually going to need to overwrite the crypts mash files. Yeah, it looks like we cannot include named mash files in our additional. And for the sake of making sure that this is actually named correctly, let's go in and check the DLC. Just to make sure I didn't name the additional mash file incorrectly, and that's the reason it's simply not calling it. Dungeons, crypts. Alright, so it is the name dot the region dot additional. I did spell that correctly. .1.mash .darkest. So I think it's simply being caused that named mashes cannot be added to additional mash files, which is very good to know. It's unfortunate, but good to know. Let's open up our additional files then and delete those. Well, let's keep them actually open for this current second. And we want to copy in the vanilla mash files. 1, 3, and 5, remember there are no 2 and 4 difficulties. They're simply unused. The fact that they cannot be used, I'm sure, is a bug, and I can simply make note of that in an email to Redhook. So we're going to want to overwrite these. Let's Control X. Let's put them at the bottom. And in the 5th one, Control X and Control V. Perfect. So let's save all those. Let's close. Let's close that. We know that that's working. And let's copy the dungeons. And let's simply test it one more time to make sure that our new changes are working as intended. Okay. Thank you, tutorial tooltips. We do have our skeleton that's all working perfectly now. Cool. So we tested it with the Iron Maiden. Let's test it one more time with the locked sarcophagus. I am going to have to pull us over here one more time while I change it. This time not misspelling it. I hope. Alright, let's pull back. Should be good. Should have the locked sarcophagus, and we already have a shovel in our inventory. Let's see if it works. Alright, shove our shovel in, the noisy approach, it's not the proper one, and we have our soldier, and it's all working as intended. And again, we can kill, and we can get one of our bone trinkets. So that's absolutely perfect. It's beautiful. So that we have our summonable enemies working, and we already did most of the work, of course. We added the enemy, added the trinkets, got those all working. So this was as simple as understanding how the Curio system worked and adding the 2 lines in there and then the strings that we needed. So most of that was just trying to understand how the Curio system worked so that we can implement what we needed. So let's close this and let's commit all of these changes. Let's select all. Let's do invigorated skeletons implemented into Curios. Perfect. Make sure you select all again. We want to commit everything, and those are all committed. And we now have all of those changes put in. So are there any questions about that? Let me close what we don't need and pull up our schedule. You guys just feel free to spout out any questions you have about what you saw today as I go over Friday's stream, which should be on time. We have a new affix, our final affix, which will be Martyrdom. And that should be about on the same difficulty as Charming, just with a couple little twists to the AI. Quest editing, which we will get into just a little bit. We're going to kind of gloss over it. We'll use it more once we implement our map, probably on stream 10 is when we'll be getting the quest working. And we're going to be creating kind of a boss affix, so to speak. I don't want to like say that we're going to be creating an entirely new boss. We're just going to be kind of creating a affix for an existing one with some new moves for our map, since our map is going to be a boss quest. So it's probably just going to be like a Shambler subtype with a couple new moves. Not too complicated. Remember, I don't want to make these streams too long. My endurance is terrible when it comes to streaming. But it should be fun either way. I'm glad that this didn't take under an hour, which I was kind of afraid that it would take. So any questions? And again, if you have any questions about everything, including stuff that you have not seen yet, save it for stream 8. I'm going to need a lot of help with that. Because if there's no suggestions or questions, it's simply going to be like, oh, well, nothing to answer. I'll have a couple things that we can work on though, just in case there aren't very many suggestions. So I'm sure we'll have some things to work on. If there aren't any questions, I know this is just on the Twitch stream. For you people watching on YouTube, please feel free to answer or ask questions in the comment section or in the Discord. It's of course probably the best place to ask, since we have not only me there, but we have a bunch of people. Try going back to previous versions of OBS. No. I think it's because I'm recording too. It's very possible that it's just because I'm recording. The problem is going back to previous versions of OBS can be difficult. It's like reverting to an older version of a game. Your saves probably won't work. It might corrupt my profiles if I try to revert. I know it sucks. I don't think it's my mic. I don't think it's my drivers. It's either because I'm recording as well as streaming, or it's because it's the OBS version. I don't think it's on my hardware end. I think it's completely on the software end with OBS. Unfortunately. Yeah, it does suck. I know. And I could get rid of them through Premiere, but the problem is if I got rid of them through video editing, I'd then have to compile the entire video and then upload it, and it's just like there's so much work just to get rid of a few glitches. But I thank people who have dealt with it for this long. I don't like it. I don't like there to be any imperfections in my streams. So I try to take very good care, but it's kind of a necessary evil at the moment. Yeah, save game file edit corrupted my game before. Yeah, very easy to do. But anyway, I'm glad we got things done. Thank you everybody for showing up. And if you have any post-stream questions, just hit it up on the Discord. But thank you again for showing up to Stream 6. Stream 7 should be fun. It will be happening at the normal time this Friday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I hope to see you all there. So thank you and have a wonderful evening.